He stood before the Galactic Throne, a spire of obsidian and luminescent crystal towering above him like the skeleton of a dead star. The throne room stretched endlessly, its walls lined with glimmering holograms of civilizations long vanished, and the air thrummed with a quiet energy that felt almost alive. He had crossed galaxies to arrive here, a human out of place among stars, yet he had not expected the weight of what awaited him. The alien queen sat atop the throne, draped in fabrics that shimmered like liquid starlight. Her eyes were deep pools of violet, ancient and unreadable, yet in them he saw a vulnerability that made his chest tighten. She was not the untouchable sovereign he had imagined from whispered tales. She was a being of immense power, yes, but also a profound sorrow. Her hands, delicate yet tipped with claws that could shred iron, rested upon the throne's armrests, trembling slightly. "He came," she whispered, voice echoing across the void of the chamber. The words were directed at no one and everyone, a declaration that carried both relief and dread. The human, Captain Elias Rourke, stepped forward cautiously. His suit's sensors flared with warnings as he approached the energy field surrounding the throne, but he ignored them. He had faced armies, black holes, and starship collisions. This fragile, grieving figure terrified him more. "You should not have come here, Elias," the queen said, yet there was no anger in her tone, only sadness, layered over centuries of isolation. "No human has ever crossed the threshold of my court and returned with their heart intact." He swallowed. "I didn't come for glory, your majesty. I came because you asked me." His words sounded braver than he felt. Memories of her emissaries pulling him from the wreckage of a dying cruiser, of whispers and visions that had led him across star systems, filled his mind. A shiver ran down her spine as she looked at him directly. "I did not summon you for diplomacy," she said softly. "I summoned you because I could not bear the loneliness any longer. I could not bear to face eternity alone." The chamber hummed with unspoken power, the weight of it pressing against his rib cage. Elias could feel the gravitational pull of the queen's sorrow, like a subtle gravity dragging at the core of his being. The holograms on the walls flickered. Ancient battles, lost worlds, and the faces of her countless consorts who had failed her in one way or another. None of them had stayed. None of them had truly understood her. "I don't know if I can stay," he said, surprising himself. "Not just because of your power, but because I don't know if I belong here." She tilted her head, her long, luminous hair cascading over her shoulders like liquid night. "Belong? Perhaps belonging is a luxury even I cannot afford. But you have a different kind of courage, one I cannot create. You are not afraid of my throne, Elias, and that frightens and comforts me in equal measure." He felt a strange pull in his chest, a dangerous mix of fear and longing. He had trained for conflict, for survival, but he was utterly unprepared for this. The realization that the creature who could crush worlds in a thought had, in some way, chosen him, chosen his heart. He began and then paused. Words failed him. He had no strategy for talking to a queen who could unmake galaxies. He only had the truth. "I came because I couldn't ignore you, because I care in ways I shouldn't." The queen's lips curved, almost imperceptibly, but it was enough to make him catch his breath. "And yet you do not kneel. You do not grovel." Her voice, though quiet, carried the authority of an entire civilization. "You are honest. That honesty is a gift I have not received in millennia." For a long moment, Silence stretched across the throne room. Then, slowly, she rose, her form towering over him despite his resolve. The air shimmered around her like heat waves on a desert planet. She extended a hand, not in command, but in invitation. "Come closer, human," she said. "Do you see me as a monster, Elias, or as someone who is simply trapped?" Elias hesitated only a heartbeat before stepping forward. Each movement felt monumental, as if the floor itself might crack under the weight of destiny. When he reached her, he could see the tiny imperfections that made her real. The faint tremor in her fingers, the almost imperceptible quiver of her lips, the tears she had tried to hide. "I see you," he said finally, voice firm. "Not as a queen, not as a weapon, not as a legend. I see you." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The first tear slid down her cheek, catching the luminescence of the throne. "Remember me, human," she whispered. "Remember me, if the stars fall and time forgets us." Days, or perhaps weeks, passed in what only described as a dream. Time had no meaning in the alien court. She taught him her language, the music of the galaxies embedded in every syllable. She showed him the archives of worlds she had conquered and worlds she had saved, and in each record he saw both cruelty and mercy intertwined. Elias learned quickly that power could be isolating, and love even more so. Their moments together were stolen. An exchange of glances across a chamber, a brush of hands when no one else was watching, but the tension was electric, the kind of connection forged when two beings understand each other despite the infinite differences in their existence. One evening, as the twin moons of her homeworld cast silvery light through the crystalline windows, the queen led him to the edge of the throne platform. Below, the cosmos stretched endlessly, stars blinking like eyes watching their secret. "Do you understand what it means to rule alone?" she asked, voice heavy with centuries of solitude. "Every decision, every command weighs on you. You are both a savior and a jailer to billions." Elias shook his head. "I can't. I'm not you. I could never hold all of that in me without breaking." She studied him, her eyes reflecting nebulae and starlight. "Yet you are here, and you have not broken. Perhaps that is why I allowed myself to care for you. Perhaps that is why I weep." He reached for her hand, this time without hesitation. Her skin was warm, impossibly soft, and he felt a pull at his soul as if their destinies were entwined. "I care, too," he whispered. "More than I should. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I do." The queen tilted her head, a fragile smile tugging at her lips. "Then you understand the burden," she said softly. "To care is to risk everything, to risk loss, and yet we do it anyway." The serenity shattered suddenly when alarms blared throughout the throne room. An invading fleet had breached her outer defenses. Ships of a rival empire, long thought pacified, were descending upon the planet. The queen's face hardened, regal authority flooding back as she rose. "You must leave," she commanded. "You are human. You do not belong in this war." Elias shook his head. "I am staying. With you." Her eyes glimmered with both fear and longing. "You will die." "I've already faced death," he said. "I've crossed galaxies for you. I will not leave now." The war came in waves of light and destruction. Elias fought alongside her guard, coordinated with her fleets, navigating the chaos of collapsing starports and blazing battleships. Every victory was paid for in blood, every maneuver steeped in tension and sacrifice. And all the while, the queen watched him, her heart torn between pride, fear, and desire. On the 7th night of the siege, the enemy breached the palace defenses. They tore through the corridors, relentless, until only the throne room remained. Elias and the queen stood side by side as energy blades clashed, her form a blur of deadly grace and his movements precise and unyielding. Finally, they faced the invader's commander, a towering being of metal and flesh. Elias's weapon jammed, leaving him vulnerable. The queen acted in an instant, shielding him with her body as a strike of cosmic energy shattered the floor beneath them. Pain shot through him, and the world seemed to tilt. Through the haze of smoke and falling crystal, he saw her tear streak across her cheek, the same one he had vowed to remember. She looked at him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and determination. "Remember me, human," she whispered. And in that moment he understood it was not just a plea but a promise. With a final, devastating strike, she banished Commander and the invaders into a dimensional rift, leaving the throne room in ruins. Dust and debris floated around them, illuminated by the dying light of the moons. Elias collapsed beside her, breathing hard, and she knelt, gathering him into her arms. "You risked everything," she said softly, voice trembling. "Even now, after everything, you remain." "I would do it again," he replied, fingers brushing her hair back. "I can't help myself. I care too much." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. She leaned down, her forehead touching his. "Then I must care for you as well," she whispered, "even if the stars themselves turn against us." Ending. In the days that followed, the palace rebuilt itself under her command, its walls infused with both ancient technology and Elias's insight into human ingenuity. The court whispered the human who survived the queen's private threshold, of the courage and loyalty that bound him to her side. But for Elias and the queen, none of that mattered. They spent long nights beneath the light of the twin moons, speaking in whispers, sharing stories of lost worlds and dreams they dared not voice to others. In the quiet moments, Elias could see the weight of her rule soften, replaced by moments of laughter, fleeting touches, and the deep, unspoken bond of love. Yet, even as peace returned, the shadow of duty never left her. One evening, she stood before the grand window, gazing at the expanse of the galaxy. Elias approached silently, placing a hand over hers. "You are weary," he said. "I am," she admitted. "But I am also alive because of you." He leaned close, voice low. "Then let me stay, not as a subject, not as a soldier, but as someone who belongs with you, always." Her lips curved into a smile, fragile yet radiant. "Remember me, human," she whispered again. "Not for my power, not for my throne, but for the heart that I give you." Elias took her hand, holding it against his chest. "I will remember," he said firmly, "always." And so, before the Galactic Throne, the alien queen wept, not for sorrow alone, but for hope, for love, and for the promise that even across galaxies, even across centuries, some hearts could find each other and endure. Above them, stars pulsed with quiet witness, the universe stretching endlessly, yet for one human and one alien queen, time had paused. In that moment, nothing else existed but memory, trust, and the fragile, unbreakable bond between them. She whispered one last time, her voice barely audible over the hum of the cosmos. "Remember me, human." And he did,